Hello, welcome to Trees and Clay. On today's project, we're starting with a piece of dimensional lumber. We just need to cut a chunk off. This is just a premium 2x4 from the local home center. We'll slice across here at the bandsaw. And now, because these are turning blanks, I'd like them square, so I measure the thickness with the blade, flip it down, and cut the width to match. There's one piece, and another. I'll mark the ends for the centers to be mounted on the lathe. But for one, it's too long, so I make a mark for square and then cut that line on the bandsaw. Little secret for cutting a square end. Now I take this measure thingamabob and I mark on the face the exact center. This is important for the layout of this project. Think we've got enough, but then because we trimmed the end, we need to mark that end for the lathe center. There's the two pieces for the project. And there's my old drill press. Thought you might like to see that. Let's drill this hole all the way through. We'll use the layout lines. The other pieces of wood are just helping to not blow through the other side of the hole and keep things square. Seems as though we've done okay. So we'll take this piece to the lathe. Get set up between centers. Got the headstock and the tailstock. We're going to turn this piece here with a hole in it first. If you've seen my channel before, you've seen this process of getting the points lined up in the crosshairs at the ends. Just simple between centers turning. Advance the tailstock. Get some pressure on here. It's about time to do some turning. We'll let the chips fly. We're just trying to make this a cylinder. Turn the sides flat, get the corners off. Say it how you may. We'll let the chisel glide across this hole in the middle here as if it isn't there. And there we've done it. Got a cylinder with a centered hole. Now I've got some layout lines for the next features. Use the end lines to true up the very ends of this piece, and then it's time for a small detail gouge to run this dance of making a cove, switching left and right, swooping into this cove, trying to feather the curves together, reaching right out to the detail lines. Do the same thing over here between these detail lines. This is one of the basics of between centers turning. Now let's make a rounded end here. We're going to adjust this cove feature just based on what I've seen by eye at the time. And continue this rounded feature at the end. This same detail gouge can perform both operations. Now the skew is used to true up some sliced fibers on the end. And to put a light chamfer right at the corner. That should be all the turning this part needs. Some sandpaper, and we're done. Those end features will get resolved later off camera. Now the other piece, a bit longer. Some more wood to hack away to make a cylinder. Try and make it brisk for you. Melt away the corners as fast as we can. Now it's time to establish a tenon on the end. These calipers are sized for that drill bit you saw earlier. And then for length, make a little mark here. Continue with the calipers and the parting tool to establish a width of a tenon. Get a little bit sloppy here with the skew, working away the rest of the wood between. Take your time on this to be accurate. I'll cut across the shoulder to avoid any torn grain. And I don't know why I'm swinging this skew chisel like a grain shovel, but I think it must be a little bit dull and I expect the wood to peel away faster, but turning is fun and you get lost in it. Start to see some curves emerge here and feather them together. Using the skew point up and point down, whatever serves its purpose. Try and get a cleanly defined point where the waist will be cut off and the rest of the piece will be retained. Now you can see the curves get feathered together to be one continuous flowing swoop. Magically flip this around for some sanding and refining, or maybe your eyes flipped. But that's that. Put some little details in here. Between the skew and my wire, we should make a few lines that make this a distinctive, sophisticated piece. Another splash of sandpaper. And I've already checked the fit, gotten it all together, and I'll take some tools away and clean up a bit. Now meet me over here at the bench, where I've got it loosely fit, but there's more work to be done. Got a little piece of walnut here, just long enough to make this even fancier. Get the handle mounted somewhat in the vise here, and a nice split sawn in. Got this hook jig that I can push off the vise and be sacrificial. Let's chop a bit off this walnut piece because it's very generous in size. That's split nicely. And you can see the direction of the grain. This hook allows me to take cuts like this and to work this piece of walnut into a wedge. It was too wide, so now I've got it much closer to a final dimension. And I'll work one end down to the wedge that will secure this hammer. We are getting the other dimension dialed in. Rather overkill chisel for a simple job. Clear up the bench here down to just the pieces we need. The wedge, top and the bottom. Put a little bit of Schmitz on here. Spread it around. And one of the most satisfying parts of the whole project. We'll use another tiny hammer to make this tiny hammer. I think there's a verse about that. Now we'll whack this home until it doesn't really whack anymore, with the grain orientation such that we don't split the rest of it. Now with a very old flush trim saw, and without waiting for the glue to set up, we can make a mess. Try and clean up this grain. The chisel that apparently was duller than we thought. This is just fun woodworking. Cleaning this all up. And here we are. It's time. It's that time of year. Merry Christmas. Everyone needs a Christmas hammer, and it can join the other timeless, valuable ornaments on the Christmas tree. This is a project you can make, and I think you should. You don't know what you need to whack, whack, whack with a tiny hammer until you have one in your hand. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.